And look at that. My name is Armando Lacerda. I'm a DBA like you guys are. I'm a developer at heart. I started doing development all the way back in the early 80s. And my first encounter with a real database thing was with IBM mainframes. I was a CSP developer for an IBM mainframe. And then I got to meet the database team. And when I got to understand databases, because I was doing, DBase 2 before, Clipper, those things are not real databases, right? Just files. But when I got to meet a real database, I felt in love with the thing. So when I left that project, it was a year-long project. When I left that project, I joined this data warehouse project using Oracle. Back then, Oracle 6, Oracle 7. Because SQL Server was actually a Site-based product, didn't have the horsepower for a big amount of data, right? A large amount of data. But then one day I was down there, I'm from Brazil by the way, I was down there in Brazil and Microsoft was cooking SQL Server 7.0, which is actually the very first SQL Server coded by Microsoft, right? And they went around all over the world and they're recruiting people to be like the trainers, the first trainer. I'm a certified trainer from Microsoft too. And they went around down in Brazil and they said, "Hey, would like to join the team?" I say, "Well, sure, why not? Let's take a look." And then I got seduced by the dark side of the force. Never worked with Oracle before. I've been working with SQL Server since SQL Server 6.5 and 7.0 and all other versions after that. And like I said, I'm a developer at heart, but nowadays you really don't develop systems from scratch. It's always about integrating, right? Creating code to perfect whatever is out there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. That's my Twitter handle. Right there, AR Lacerda, so if you want to connect and follow. I don't tweet much, so I'm not going to bother you that much, right? But it's good to have connections in there. I managed to get a domain name with my name, armandolacerda.com, and I was like, that was like 7 months ago, and I was like, hey, going to put a website, with my name. Well, the website's not there because they just doesn't afford to get some extra project going on, but the email works, right? The website will be there soon. I have promises so many times already, I'm not going to promise anything. But the website will be there soon. When it's in there, there will be a lot of SQL Server stuff going on, all right? LinkedIn, you can connect with me, LinkedIn too. And Facebook is more for personal stuff, right? You don't want to, when I go surfing or do whatever, hiking, whatever. If you want to like, oh, look how bad this guy is doing these things, you can go ahead and check there too, right? Okay, so we're here for stretched databases. And because I have already lost like 10 minutes of my 45 minutes presentation, let me go and stream through this. And this is the wrong slide, by the way. This is the sponsors for the Phoenix one, because I just downloaded from there. Just to honor the guys who kind of paid the bill for us to be here, let me go ahead and bring the slide I had created for the other ones. And I download the Phoenix one just because I was unable to find the one I did for this LA here. I was rushing to my database. I have had a lot of trouble with my source code for this presentation. But here we are. These are now our sponsors. It's always important to keep in mind that events like this cannot happen without the sponsors, right? They really paid the bill there and some other financial going on. But thanks to these guys here, kudos to them. Some of them were not around. I was there in the tables out there looking for people, they'll give my contact in there, but they're not around. Actually, at this time, they're not around either because they already, most of them have picked up and left already. But anyways, thanks to them. Back in here, moving on. There we go. So to the subject to the subject in hand, let's stretch stuff, right? What is the idea of stretch database? It's a funny name to something that it's not much about stretching either, anyways, but it kind of resembles it. So what's the idea about the stretch database? I'm going to go into 3 topics on the stretch database. I'm going to show you how to set up a stretch database, how it is great for what we call cold data. Right there on the slide, it's called the historical data, right? But it's perfect. It's actually created with the scenario in mind. And has a side effect. How can it help a lot with backup and restore strategies, right? So let's get straight to it. Most of this particular design here, I created myself, so give me a break. But that's the real idea of a stretched database, right? Stretched database is like you have a table that stretches out to the cloud. Does that make sense, right? You got a table. Is this working? Let me see. Oh, it's not working. I'm writing someplace else, and it's not going to the screen. So forget about the pen for the moment. So it's a database that is created on my on-premise server, my on-premise instance, and the data stretches out to the cloud. Is it an Azure feature, or is it a SQL Server 2016 feature? Well, either way, you can say it is a SQL Server 16 feature that depends on the cloud, or is a cloud, an Azure feature, that runs only in SQL Server 2016, right? But you cannot have a stretched database without having both resources. It has to be 2016 and has to depend on the Azure service, which we get more in details as we move on. The table, in order for the table to be stretched, it needs to be compatible. And we're going to go all of the details of this compatibility, and the slide deck I'm going to upload to this SQL Saturday website later, like I did for Phoenix. We have the links, right? This slide deck here will have the links for the official documentation. And of course, you have to keep an eye on bandwidth, because some of your queries will go out to the cloud, pull data from the cloud back to on-premise to answer the query, right? You give data back from the query. So bandwidth plays a big role in here. So before I start into the details, because this thing can take a little long, I'm going to start straight into the demo to see how we can get this thing going. So let me go in here, and let me get Management Studio. Let's get it up and running here. If I do this, it doesn't zoom in. So if I do, if I do this, and zoom, yeah, then it zooms. Perfect. You have to find your way around, right? Get this guy here, connect. And I have a bunch of databases in here on this server. I'm going to do a filter here just to focus on the database we want to work with. So filter settings, and this one here, the name of the database is Do Factory, right? Yeah, Do Factory. Go there. Do Factory is a sample database you can download from a training website. In the free training website, they have this sample database there. I always go around for sample databases when I'm doing presentations. On the previous one, I showed the one from Stack Overflow in the website, for questions, when you post questions and people answer there, right? They make available the database of all the questions and all the answers and all the interactivity. So on the previous presentation, I used that one. This one, I'm going to use this guy here. And let me get here and this. Nope. So back here and this. Yes. So here's Do Factory. And as you can see, Do Factory is a very simple database. It has and is running out of this external hard drive here. So sometimes it's like, oh, wait a minute, right? Because it's running from external storage. So this is how it works, right? It has just this 5 tables in here. 2 of these tables, as you can see over here, they are regular tables, right? But just for fun, I made 3 of the other tables temporal tables. Now, I don't want to distract you with temporal tables, but you want to take a look on temporal tables if you are going to work with the stretched databases in the right way, which is keeping old data. And I think you agree with me that historical data is cold data. Is that right? It's data you don't want to change. And if it's like most companies out there that needs to keep 5 to 7 years data for auditing, right? So that's my history. So that's my cold data. Does that make sense so far? So that's why I decided to integrate this on this demonstration here. So there is a table here, product, supplier, and customer with order item and order ID. Let me get out of here. I will try. There we go. Let me get out of here. And the design for this database is this one here. That's the website where you can get the script for the database. Like I said, I changed it a little bit to get the temporal table. And of course, the source code of what I've done is up there in the cloud. and in the SQL side of the website. And here how it works. It's pretty cool, right? Very straightforward, no fancy stuff besides the temporal table. And these are the size of my tables in kilobytes or megabytes in this case, and the rows. Is that okay? Like I said, I have hot data like orders. People are doing orders all the time, right? I got hot data. And like customers. I have customers and I have 91 customers in here, and they're my customers, they're buying stuff. But when they change like a phone number and email, I will need to keep the history of that one. So I have customers in history. And over time, my 91 customers have done 139,000 changes. Of course, I'm running a script here just to force some data. Is that all right? So this is history. It's kind of big. And my order item also is kind of big too, right? So I want to move this data that's history and is occupying space on my SAN perhaps and cost me some money. I wanted to move it to the cloud where it's going to cost me some money, but hopefully less money than keep it local, all right? And also, like I said, the backup is going to help with that, is going to be helped by this strategy. So to see that going, let me go ahead here on the do factory. I'm going to right click this guy here. I'm going to go for tasks. And right here, don't know if you can read it from there, is, huh? Oh, there you go. Just make sure you're still. It's last session, right? Everybody's tired. The conference is great, right? It has been great, but last one is always tough. So, you look, it's like this. And enabled. Is that right? I'll go here, enable, and what I'm going to get? Of course, a wizard, right? A wizard is gonna pop up. And if you're like a DevOps guy, like I'm there too. If you're a DevOps guy, you're like, kill this presenter, right? I need the script for this thing. Well, as you know, Management Studio creates scripts for almost everything you do in Management Studio, but for this one. So if you want to script this thing out, let me make really clear. If you want to script this thing out, you can, right? You can script out the whole process. I'm just going to save you from that today because of the time. But you have to do some PowerShell scripts to run, to create the Azure side of this. And of course, SQL scripts to run the SQL side of this, all right? So it can be scripted out, but I'm going to keep that for some other day. So I'm going to go in here. And the wizard is going to check out my tables and see which tables can be stretched to Azure. Hold on. Stop right there. What is the wizard doing? It is checking my database to see if my tables, the tables that I have in my database, if my tables can be stretched. SQL Server stretch database is not for all tables, and you're going to see the criteria as we move along. But as you can see here in my screen, I have one table that cannot be stretched. Oh, thank goodness, not the table I really want to stretch, right? But if it was, I would have to work around that. In any case, I have here, where's my mouse? And right here, right here. Okay, so I have here customers and customers. Oh, how many customers? 2 tables with the same name? Thank you. Distinct schema, right? And by the amount of row, I know this is the one I want to stretch out. But as you can see, they have work to space for improvement in here because this could be confusing. Is that right? So this is the table I wanted to stretch out to SQL Server. And also this one here, the history for my customers, products, and suppliers. And also the big one here, right? The order item. Now, for these 3 guys here, I just want to get the whole code data in there, right? But for order item, I do not have history. I did not create on purpose for the sake of the demonstration. I did not create a history table for order item. So I have to apply a criteria. So that may answer the question that I usually get in this presentation. That's like, do I have to stretch the whole table or can I stretch just portion of the table? And the answer is, I can stretch a portion of the table. And the portion, I define that by clicking here on the entire table and say, you know what, I don't want to do the entire table, but just the rows I'm going to select. Is that okay? Got that? When I do this, what I'm actually creating behind the scenes is a function, a scalar function that SQL, the stretch database feature in SQL Server will use to check if when a row comes into the database, if that row is supposed to be moved to the cloud or not. Is that right? So this is going to be your criteria. This function here is going to be your criteria. So let's say here, old orders is going to be the name of my function. Now, of course, I have to make things more complicated. And here in my order item, which is the table I'm moving to the cloud, here in the order item, I don't have date, because the date is in the orders, in the header, right? So let's fix that just quick. I'm not going to add a column in here, of course. What I'm going to see here is like a select from where? DBO dot order. Let's see here. Where? O dot. And IntelliSense is not helping. So let's go over here. Get here order date. Perfect. So select order date. Oh, now you have it. Order. No, it's O, man. I did an alias there. O dot order date. From, am I in the right database? Right database. Select O dot order date. I'm going to get this a little bigger so you guys can follow along. Let's get this font here like 14 so you guys can follow along. So select O date from DBO dot order. Perhaps the name is not a good name. If I do that, it may help. There we go. Dot order date, and this one here, order date, where order date equals to 2015, let's say 0101. Oh boy. (0101) and 2015 0102, because of that time thing we have, right, for the orders. Let me see here the minimum value for this guy. Run. And it's running my query. It's running here on, there we go. So this is, actually, I need this. And now I need this. Select star from dbo.order, where order date equals to this guy. Copying. So the point of demonstrating this is to let you know that you can, the stretch database is very flexible, but sometimes due to your data design, your database schema, you have to figure out what's the right way to do a filtering there. In this case here, I'm looking for the order that was placed first in the first day of 2015. I want to keep 2014 back up in the cloud. So if this is the order that was there, and this is an identity column, right, that was there on this date, so the one before that is the last one placed in 2014. So it's going to be this number here inside my virtual machine. And the number is 472 549 579 472 479. Back in here. So where order ID is lower than or equals to 472 479. Does it make sense? Everybody okay? What am I doing here? Cheating. Every order before 2015 is supposed to go to the cloud. Does that make sense? Everybody okay so far? All right. So this is it. Do a check. Let's see if my query is okay. And I should see here someplace a green mark saying it's good. There we go. See? Success. My query is okay. When I present this, some people say, hey, Armando, there is a top 1,000 there. Is that a limit? to get just 1,000 rows up in the cloud. No, it's just checking if the criteria works with a sample of the on-premise data, right? Every row that matches the criteria will go. So let's do an OK in here. And now, as you can see, let me click out of there. Now it's not the entire table. Now it's going to be my function. So far, so good? Everybody OK? Now the fun part, the thing that talks to Azure. So I need to have an Azure subscription, like I said. So I'm going to use my personal one. Actually, it's the one that Microsoft gives us to trainers, to certified trainers. They give us like $150, so we can burn every month $150 worth of Azure services. And I usually do it on this kind of presentation. To share knowledge, have fun with new friends. So let's see if that goes, if I have typed the password okay. And I hope, the whole data is going to be transferred from my virtual machine in this laptop here up to the cloud. I just hope that the network here will function all right. Okay, there we go. So this is my subscription, my MSDN subscription, and is looking for Azure locations, what is available out there. Azure is the cloud service, but it has data centers everywhere, right? So where do I want to keep my code data? Close to the people who's going to use that data when they need to use. Am I going to keep it in Australia? Although there are a lot of Australian friends around here, right? I think I don't want to keep it there. I'm going to go ahead and do this guy here, right? West US. Now, this is serious. I try to keep it like a good tone in here, a fun tone. But I had a friend who created a database, not this one, but a SQL database in the East Coast of US by mistake. And we are running on some performance issues. When I checked it out, look, it's in the East Coast. And my friend was like, oh, no, it's in the US. It's just right there, right? New York is just there. Say, okay, let's check that out. And there is, side note here for you, right? There is a website you can go called Azure Speed. And you can see the difference when you go West US and East US from my location. There's the graphic, and here is the the time. So look at that. East US 86, West US 32. It can be 2 times, 3 times more, right? Do all the traffic. So this is an important thing, right, to keep in mind. Just a caveat here for you on Azure, since we're talking about Azure. So West US is it. Yep, I'm going to create a new server. What server is going to be created in here? It's not Azure SQL Database. Some people are like, oh, there is a limit, right, for Azure SQL Database, 4 terabytes nowadays. What is created in here is an Azure Data Warehouse. It's not Azure SQL Database. So the Azure Data Warehouse for this kind of service here, it has no space limit. Microsoft promises you, like, as you dump data in there, they keep increasing, right? They just keeping the things growing. So it's virtually limitless in data size. So this is going to be because this is going to be a service, an Azure Data Warehouse up in the cloud, I need to create a login for this guy. So I'm going to call it what we are, Superman DBA, right? Or Superwoman. And some password in here. And you should be good to go. Move on. And because this username and password are going to be kept in my local on-premise SQL server, I need to create an encryption key, right? And to keep that thing private on the local server. So there we go for it again. And don't do this, all right? This is the firewall thing. You're supposed to, enumerate the IP addresses that should have access to this. Is the, your company's data. For sake of presentation, I'm going to do here like this, because I don't want to deal with firewalls in this one here, right? But don't do this home. Don't do this home. Moving on. Now, here's the fun part. Let me see if I can zoom into this guy here. No, same deal. So back here, and then zoom in. Yeah. So this is the fun part. This is all the summary of all my answers. And I really want to point your attention, if I can see my, there you go, to this. How much is it going to cost? Minimum is gonna be about $2,000, right? $1,800 and change. Armando, that's very expensive. It could be, it could not be, depending on the size of your, no, just kidding. But the point in here is, this thing was created to replace the local SAN utilization. Now, I'm creating a database in here that by default is gonna, let's say, it would support 15 terabytes volume of data. How much does SAN cost to support 15 terabytes of data? Huh? $1 million. Actually, no, not that. Yeah. Last time I checked was around $10,000. Right? Last time I checked, around $10,000. Now, on this one here, you would reach $10,000 in 5 months or 6. Is that right? But what about the invisible cost? You know, keeping the hardware, keep the guy taking care of the hardware, all the network infrastructure for the thing, air conditioning. I already have a data center. You know, it has to be computed in, right? Bottom line is, this number looks high. It is high for my pocket, right? But for companies who need to keep this kind of cold data up in stored somewhere else, it can be cost effective. And I have cases, there are many of cases there where this thing is cost effective. But Armando, I don't have 10 terabytes of data. I have like 500 gigabytes of data. This doesn't look good to me. What I would tell you was what I have heard from Microsoft people in other presentations. Go talk to your TAM. Microsoft is very interested to get people into this. So if the price doesn't match, they can work out, perhaps they can work out the price with you, right? Not in every case, but you know, a guy from Microsoft down there in Chicago, he told me, tell your people in your presentation that they should double check the price depending on the scenario, right? The client and so on. In any case, be ready for this. Now let me go out of here, click here, unzoom, click back. I'm always getting myself into trouble. I don't know why I do this. So click finish, and we're going to go back to the slide deck. And I have, what, 10 minutes to finish this? No, right? How long do I have? How much time do I have? How much more time? I don't have the schedule here. It is, this thing started at 4:30, so it should be 5:30, right? 25 minutes, perfect. Enough time, we're good. All right, so this is done. Have I clicked finished already? Yeah. So all the commands are going behind the scenes right now. Like I said, unfortunately, this thing does not create a script, right, from the wizard at this moment. Perhaps this is the latest Visual Studio, by the way, right? Keep your management studio up to date all the time, right? And this is a thing that works only in SQL Server 2016, does not work in 2014. So you got to use the latest on this guy here to work. So I'm going to leave it processing this, and I'm going to go back to this guy here in a second. Let's talk what is going on behind the scenes and those restrictions, while we wait that thing, you know, do its magic. So this is the database layout. We have already covered that. We're going to see this data flowing to the cloud in a bit. So some of the benefits of a stretch database, it can be cost effective in multiple scenarios, especially for large databases. This is not for your MSDB database, right? This is for large databases. Well, I put this one here on purpose, the second line. If you go to the website, you know, to Microsoft documentation, they will tell you no schema change. But when they say no schema change, they do not include constraints. Because if you already have a database, you already have the table, and if that table has some constraints, you will have to change the table by disabling some of those constraints. And I'm going to go over the details of this in a second, right? So there is no database schema on the perspective of column change. But even when we look at the column, if your table has a blob storage, for instance, like an image, if you have the image data type, you cannot stretch that one, right? Not supported. Full details on Microsoft documentation, I have the links on the slide deck. But this is true, the last one is really true. Once the table is compliant, right, the table is compliant, any query to the stretch database will work exactly the same as was a regular table on-premise. There is absolutely nothing to change in any query, so therefore it's transparent to applications. Some restrictions. Can I make changes on rows on a stretch table? Actually, the feature name is stretched database, but as you could see in the wizard, is actually the table is actually stretched, right? Because I've got some tables that are stretched right now, and some tables who are not stretched. Is that right? So can I make changes? Yes, you can, but only on the rows that are on-premise. Anything that was migrated up to the cloud, you're not allowed to change, right? Remember, code data. Code data, historical data is not supposed to be changed, right? So only you can do changes, but only on data that's local. Views referring to stretched tables have limited features, like you cannot create indexes on the views because you would have to go out, right, to the cloud and pick data from there. So there are some restrictions in there. And this is a big one. Don't cry, right? You can live without it. Tables that are stretched to the cloud cannot be the endpoint of a foreign key. Like I have orders and order details, right? Order and other items. Order items can go, but orders cannot. Because order items has a foreign key definition to orders. Got that? So order item can go, the child in the relationship can go, the parent cannot go. Why? Because when you do a change, it has to check the data to see if the change, insert or an update can go on, right? Can be inserted in the database. And if it has to go to the code data all the time you do that, your bill is going to be this big, right? Because you pay not just for storage, but all egressing data. Every time data comes out of the cloud to your client on-premise, in this case SQL Server, you pay for that. Is that okay? All right. There we go. So some block factors. File stream. This is a list here. I'm not going to read the whole thing in here. Just point out to some elements. This makes perfect sense, right? If it's in memory, come on. It's not going to be in the cloud, right? It's in memory. None of this here can be set up in a table. Special data types, like I said, images cannot go up to the cloud. Column set, which is like breaking the relational idea, right? Is also not supported up in the cloud. Now these are the killer ones. Default and check constraints, big no. You really cannot have that in a table. All right? So that's what I'm telling, that refers back to the point I just mentioned. No schema change. Yeah, the table can go the way it is as long as it doesn't have a default or a check constraint. All right? Most of my tables don't, but if I do, I have to disable them. And I have, like, if I have a default, I have to make sure all code touching this table gives a value to that column. Is that all right? Okay? Okay, and some other data types in here. And also, like I pointed before, price can also be a thing. So let's see how my virtual machine is going so far. It's creating the database scope. It's still doing. It's kind of running really slow. I think the network's killing me here. Stretched the database to the factory. And this one is just settings. So let me double check that here just for fun. Chrome. Oh, Chrome is not here. So let's use Internet Explorer. So that is AzureSpeed.com. Let's see how things are going from here. Uncheck them all. And just here in West Coast. Oh, look at my look at my round trip here. Okay, it's fluctuating. Okay, that's better. That's what I'm expecting. All right, so we have to wait for this thing to finish. Leave it there. Let's move on in here, and I go back to that one in a second. This is the end, almost the end of this presentation. That previous demo, they're going to query the table so you can see, right, how things work behind the scenes. But yeah, from here, like I said, if you have current data on-premise and historical data up in the cloud, on your backup strategy, you get big benefits on this one. Now, give me a size to this database, a big size. Give me a size. 10 terabytes. So rounded numbers, let's say I have 2017, 2016 local, and I have all the way back to 2010 code data. So that makes 9 years, right? From 9, I have 7 years, 7 years in the cloud, 2 years local. If I run a backup of this database, what's going to happen? A full backup. SQL Server 2016 will realize that the major portion of your data is up in the cloud, and whatever is in the cloud will stay there. Only the local data, only the data that's on-premise, on your local premise, is going to be backed up. So your backup, just out of that, will be 1/5 smaller. Is that right? Which means it could be it could take 1/5 of the time to do it. Like instead of 10 hours, it's going to take 2 hours. So that's a big benefit, a side effect, right? You don't do stretch database just for that. But it's a big side effect and a big gain you get from stretch database. And Armando, what if my database crashes and I have to restore it? What I do is I restore, or you will be doing is you restore your local, and once it's up, you're going to use some store procedures that are there built in SQL Server to reconnect the database, the local database, to what is on-premise. That's the beauty of it, right? You just reconnect, and the thing starts flowing again. One thing I have not mentioned, let me go back here. I did not pay much attention to, I did not give much time to this one here is, so on a stretch database, there is local data, and there is, I got to check if you're still there with me, guys. There is local data, and there is remote data. But when data flows from here to the cloud, SQL Server keeps a copy of the data that is already in a cloud on a place called stage data, which we don't see, right? It's internal to SQL Server. So while the data is flowing over here, and I'm taking local backups of my table from time to time, if this guy crashes, when I restore my database back, there will be data in this database that's already in the cloud. So SQL Server looks into the stage to see if there is anything in here that's not in the cloud yet. In this case, after restore, there wouldn't be. But if there was any, it will be uploaded to the cloud. And whatever data that's already in the cloud and is still in here will be wiped out from the local copy, just restored from your storage place. Does it make sense? Is that right? So the thing is well designed to avoid data duplication. Although it doesn't use foreign key in these things, right? It's well designed to avoid data duplication, right? It will balance it up for a while, and after it's done, and this data here is kept by default for 8 hours minimum, and you can change it for like a day, just make sure your backup strategy can accommodate this, this buffer. Does that make sense? Yes. On-premise. It's on-premise. Huh? Well, remember, you have a 10 terabytes database. You are moving about 8 of it to the cloud. So at least at the beginning of this, you have spare space there on your database. If you shrink the data file, then you have to, how long am I keeping data on the stage? For 8 hours? How much data volume am I going to send up to the cloud in 8 hours? It depends on your criteria, right? If it's the entire table, so every time something changes, something goes. If it's like my order item table, it's by year. Nothing's going to go over to the cloud in the year. Next year, going to change the function to shift the year over, and then the last year we will move to the cloud for a few days, and then no traffic anymore, and this thing goes away. Is that right? So yes, you have to plan for it in case by case. No, inside the database. Inside the database that's being stretched. Okay? You have to try to predict how much volume you have in between your time, right? Between the 8 hours minimum, it's going to keep this in the stage. Yes? On the database. It sits on the database, not in TempDB. all right? Because tempdb, every time you reboot the instance, it wipes out. So then you go. Good questions, good questions. Yes? Uh-huh. Yeah, like I said, you can. Oh, if you need to bring the data back, yes, SQL Server, there are store procedures you can use. And it seems by the time I'm not be able to demonstrate this because my virtual machine, for whatever reason, is running slower here today. On the previous presentations, the whole thing went through just fine, but today is kind of lazy. Perhaps because it's the last session of the day. But on the scripts there, if you go to the SQL Server website, you're going to see the scripts. And also the links on the documentation. If you're like, okay, don't want to use this anymore. So you can go into command line in SQL Server T-SQL and call some store procedures, say you want to disable this. And all data start flowing back. And once you make sure that everything is back in, you have to go on to the Azure portal and kill the service. Otherwise, it's going to keep billing you. Okay? Yes? Sorry, a little louder. The encryptioning, yes, completely private. If you have encryptioning on the column, it will be encryption up there too. If you have transparent data encryption on a local server, the key exists only on local server, so when it gets up there in the cloud, you have to set up the encryption over there with another key, but everything is private. Yeah, it doesn't seem it's going to finish this. I wish I could show you that. Well, anyways, let me see here. Yes? Yeah. No, it's a regular query like this. Select top one from dbo.customers. I did stretch the whole table to the cloud, right? So this regular query here, once the thing is finished, will go to the cloud. Like that. I'm sorry. So I have my on-premise database here, and can I access the data that's in the cloud without going through my on-premise database, right? The answer is yes, but not supported, right? If you go here into Management Studio, and you say, you know what, I want to connect to the server I have created up in and I go there and check the server name, and I use that Superman account I have created in here, I will be able to connect there. And by doing this, I can do updates there. That's why it's not supported, right? Because here is a regular SQL access to the data warehouse. You can do whatever you want. So if you don't want to have your historical data compromised, you don't tell anyone what I have just told you. There we go. Yes? Only in the cloud. Only with Azure. Not even AWS. Yep. Uh-huh. Sounds like bad news, but if you think through it, it's the way it is, right? It's supposed to be. Is that right? I mean, it's a side note here, but if you think about AWS, if you compare AWS and Azure, pretty much what AWS does is VMs. And everything you do is inside a VM all the time. Microsoft's cloud solution is not like that. VM is the solution you're going to use if you're, for whatever reason, constrained from using platform as a service. What they want you to do is to go platform as a service. So it's a completely different approach. You don't want to go VM, that's why you cannot use the AWS. Yeah. To mimic something like that on premise, you do file group. If you do file group and want to keep things in your sand, file groups will do that. No. Only to Azure Data Warehouse. Right? So if I run this guy here, I think this table is not there yet, but just in case, let's do it. Top one. Look, even my local, something is wrong with my VM. I'll apologize. Of course, the data is going to come, but where is this data coming from? So I'm going to go here into the query plan, actual execution plan. There we go. I'm going to execute this guy again. And if you guys are lucky, it's already in the cloud. Otherwise, it's local. Let's see. Execution plan. And it's still local, right? When the data is already in the cloud, there is a step here, a specialized step, which is cloud querying. There's an icon here that shows you that's coming from the cloud. So, all right? So sorry, guys. The replication thing did not finish. And it's the first time. This is the 5th time I'm presenting this particular session. And it's the first time it didn't went through like in 5 minutes. So sorry about that. All right? Ping me later. I can record a video on this one here, put it on YouTube, and then can see the thing working. Okay? Now watch out when using this if you want to try this home, right? Big bill coming back, right? This one here is like it's minimum. If I go here to the portal right now, you guys will see. I think I'm paying $2.50 per minute of this thing running, right? So if you don't want to get into budget trouble, right? Make sure you're using one of these vouchers that Microsoft gives away. Talk to your TAM. There you go. So if I go here to all resources, I should see here SQL Saturday, LA. Is it this one? No, this one. Stretch, local server, do factory. It's this guy here. So the instance, whoa, look at that. Even this guy's not showing. Yeah, something went terribly wrong. The script didn't fail though, but something is going terribly wrong in here. I do have money, I think. Yep. Still have money there. So I don't know what's going on. But you would see here, like I'm seeing now, you have to come in here, delete this guy if you want to get stop build for, right? If you don't remove the guy from here, even on using, there's nothing connect to it, you are paying for the service. All right? Any more questions? Image? Limit on the cost. Yes, when you create this guy here, it is already there. Yes, it's already here. There is a, where is it? There is a subscription level, which for whatever reason is not showing here. So you can choose how much you want to pay per month, right? And you're charged, let me show here. Azure calculator. So if you go here and let me remove storage from here. Let me add database and Azure Data Warehouse, SQL Data Warehouse. Yeah, there's no option for, there we go, stretched right here. So let me add stretched. And let me remove this guy from here. It's kind of the same, but here we go. So you see $2.50 per, not per minute, sorry, per hour, my bad. So if I go here, go months, and this is the minimum tier, right? 10 and 100 DSUs, not DTUs for the SQL data, Azure SQL DB, right? Here's DSUs. It's kind of the same idea, but it doesn't include much of the storage. Like if I go here, 100 terabytes of data there, I got a big price, 100 terabytes. But if you limit like to 10 terabytes, you keep your eye on that, and off you go. Final bill. So you control it by the amount of DSUs. Like if I go 500 DSUs, goes that big, right? And that's how you can limit it. When you create a subscription for all the service, you can say, hey, for this subscription, I don't want the bill to be more than 4,000. So regardless what you keep up in here, if the bill hits 1,000, everything is suspended until the next cycle. Or if you pay more, if you put more money there, right? If you change the limit. So that would be the way, and here's how you control the performance. Good enough? All right. You all good? So enjoy the after party, guys. See you next year.